What's up everybody, I'm Derek, this is Rocking E Forge, and today I'm going to be forging a Dragonfly. So, let's get rocking. Now, while I'm getting the forge lit up and warming up, I'm going to head to the bandsaw and cut off a piece of 1/4 by 1/2 inch flat stock. I'm hoping this works out for this project. Probably would go with 3/4 inch flat stock if you had it, but I don't, so I'm going to go with 1/4 by 1/2 and see how this works out. I lied. As soon as I looked at the 1/4 by 1/2, I knew it was going to be too slim, so I'm going to make my own 1/4 by 3/4 inch flat stock out of this 1/4 by 1.5. I'm going to cut down the middle, and I'm going to give myself about 7 inches of length before I actually start working with this. And then I'm going to just kind of color through roughly the center of the bar that I just made with a Sharpie. And then I'm going to put a mark halfway across down the center line of here for at least one end, and that's going to become our front 2 wings. We're going to cut down from that end about 2.5 inches, and we'll mark that with our calipers here. So I'm going to cut down the middle, and that'll start forming our wings. All right, so I've got that cut done. Now we're gonna have to figure out how long of a tail we want on our Dragonfly here, and we're gonna have to cut in here to establish the wings, but also leave us a tail on this end. And in order to accomplish that, because I made this 3/4 inch wide, I'm gonna cut in 1/4 inch from either side. Mark that out with my calipers here. And that should give me 1/4 inch for the tail, 1/4 inch for each back wing. And I'm actually gonna make this 3 inches long, and I'm gonna go back and cut this 3 inches long so that I don't have so much body here. All right, so now that we've got a cut down the middle for the front wings and 2 cuts on either side of the center for the back wings, the plan is to throw it in the fire and then start to chisel out where the head is going to be with my hand chisel. So let's get this in the fire. And the key here, oh, I messed that up, is going to be to not cut all the way to the edge. So I've got to use the corners of my chisel to establish all this. I'm not super concerned about the head of this looking particularly great right now. I just need to cut out enough material to be able to spread these wings back from the head. So that's the goal here. And we're just going to try to make it all the way through. I'm actually going to switch to my smaller chisel so that I can fit in on that a little bit better and actually chisel that out. All right, so now that I've got this partially split and actually have the wings kind of spreading out from where the head is, I can actually come in here at these angles with the bandsaw and cut in there, spread the wings out, and then actually come in and make these kind of more inline cuts to establish the head. So we're gonna go do that now. So I gotta go do a couple of things with this. One, I've got this spread wide enough now that it won't fit in my forge. So I'm gonna come in here with my chisel. I'm gonna chisel between the wing and the head. Just kind of open that up a little bit. And then I'm just gonna use this to bring the wing, kind of curl this back in so that I can work on things. I don't want to keep wiggling that thin point back and forth too awful much, so I'm going to be a little careful, but I'm going to throw that back in and chisel out that same split before we go to work on the wings. Now I've got this kind of split out on both sides. I'm gonna lock this back in the vise and bend these all the way out. So that I can work on the head, grinding and filing and all that stuff. And first thing I'm gonna do here is actually, while I've still got some heat in the wings, is bend these the opposite direction. Maybe. And I'm gonna come in and clean these cut portions with a file so that I don't develop any cold shuts in there, and then we'll start working on the head. All right, so now, before I go too far, I'm gonna try to split off the other two wings. All right, so I'm having fun getting this thing fit in and out of the forge. But I'm trying to get the wings straight out to either side so that I can start spreading them out and then shaping them. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side, straighten that back out, and then we can get to work. All right, so to make this a little more streamlined, I went ahead and cut out toward the edge here on both sides. Gives me a little bit thicker piece here for the tail, streamlines the shape, and it'll give me a little better of a bending point at that thinner point than along this entire what's going to become the wing, because it's thinner at this point and at this point than it is along the actual square cross section here. All right, so it is taking multiple heats to get this, my tongs there, to get these wings all the way spread out. So if you're making this, have some patience. Once I get each of these wings 90 degrees out from the body, I can start working on spreading and shaping those. So we'll go ahead and skip to the anvil right now. All right, so I think this is about as far spread as I'm going to get the wings from the main body. And honestly, I think it's kind of coming together. Now that I've got this kind of worked out, I'm gonna go ahead and just turn this sideways, grab this by one of these wings, and then start kind of spread these wings out a little bit more this direction now, and then start spreading each wing to look more like a dragonfly wing. All right, I'm gonna spread this using my small rounding hammer. Ow, ow. This piece is scale right in the finger. And these are turning out super long, but I think the width-wise, I think we've got it on this one. We'll see if we can get wide enough with the back wings to try to match these, and then I'll go ahead and cut these off and grind them to shape once I kind of get the final shape done. And it's worth noting here that I'm laying the body off the edge of the anvil and just spreading the wing. All right, I'm gonna straighten out this tail. We're gonna round this tail up, work on the head, and then grind all of the wings to final shape. We'll be pretty well close to finished. All right, so now I'm gonna come in and punch in just a couple simple eyes with my center punch. Then while I've got it still pretty hot, I'll go ahead and touch mark on the back here. And then we'll go ahead and give this a good brushing. Get rid of all that surface rust from the oxidation in the forge. And then while it's still hot, we'll go ahead and give it a nice layer of beeswax to kind of seal it all off, prevent rust, and darken the steel a bit. Now I've got some initial thoughts on how this project turned out. I think the wings ended up maybe a little long. I think they're still fairly proportional. The way I ended up cutting in and chiseling and pulling the wings out of the actual main piece of steel resulted in some wonkiness in some of the wings, lumpy, bumpy, kind of not super great looking final product. And that's just kind of the way the blacksmithing goes. This was absolutely the first time I tried this project, and it was just off of a picture I saw online, and I thought, I have a way that might work for that, and a way of forging this kind of popped into my head, and that's the way that I took it. And honestly, many of my videos are actually of me doing a project for the very first time, which is why I make mistakes and why it doesn't always turn out quite the way that I planned it. And as you develop as a blacksmith, you'll come to learn that that's okay. The way I did this certainly wasn't perfect, so certainly wasn't necessarily the best way to do it. I learned that 3/4 inch wide flat stock is probably the bare minimum of trying to do this project, and it ended up making the way I made the head and the wings fairly challenging to get nice. Now again, this project didn't turn out perfect or quite the way that I originally envisioned it in my head, but it did give me some ideas of what I could do in the future to make a, nicer looking version of this Dragonfly, or different ways that I could try to do it. So I have in my head now the idea of doing a kind of a split cross style Dragonfly, which would kind of eliminate the issues with bending the wings back from the main body of the steel. I think that could turn out really nice, and I may make a video of that in the future. But for the time being, that is going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, leave a comment, hit subscribe, ring that notification bell. If you want to support me in the channel further, please consider becoming an honorary striker on my Patreon, or please consider becoming a member on my YouTube channel. And as always, keep on rocking.